هذا القرآن يوحدنا لطريق الخير يوجهنا الله تعالى أنزله ورسول الله معلمنا.
I'd like to welcome all of you here for today's session where we are going to be talking about the Integrated Encyclopedia of Islam. To start with, I would like to invite Ustaz Sheikh Ramadan to recite some verses from the Holy Qur'an.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله ولتنظر نفس ما قدمت لغد واتقوا الله إن الله خبير بما تعملون ولا تكونوا كالذين نسوا الله فأنساهم أنفسهم أولئك هم الفاسقون. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله ولتنظر نفس ما قدمت لغد واتقوا الله إن الله خبير بما تعملون. ولا تكونوا كالذين نسوا الله فأنساهم أنفسهم أولئك هم الفاسقون. لا يستوي أصحاب النار وأصحاب الجنة. لا يستوي أصحاب النار وأصحاب الجنة. أصحاب الجنة هم الفائزون. لو أنزلنا هذا القرآن على جبل لرأيته خاشعا متصدعا من خشية الله. وتلك الأمثال نضربها للناس لعلهم يتفكرون. والله الذي لا إله إلا هو عالم الغيب والشهادة الرحيم هو الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الملك القدوس السلام المؤمن المهيمن العزيز الجبار المتكبر سبحان الله عما يشركون هو الله الخالق البارئ المصور له الأسماء الحسنى يسبح له ما في السماوات والأرض وهو العزيز الحكيم صدق الله العظيم.
Jazakumullah khairan, brother. I will read out the meaning of the verses that have just been read out by the brother. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. O you who have believed, fear Allah and let everyone consider well what he has forwarded for the morrow. Fear Allah, for Allah is well aware of all that you do. Do not be like those who forgot Allah and Allah caused them to forget their own selves. They indeed are the transgressors. The dwellers of hell and the dwellers of paradise cannot be alike. The dwellers of paradise alone are truly successful. Had we sent down this Qur'an upon a mountain, you would have seen it humbling itself and splitting asunder from the fear of Allah. We present these parables before the people so that they may reflect on themselves. He is Allah, besides whom there is no God. He is the knower of the unseen and the seen. He is the compassionate and the merciful. He is Allah, besides whom there is no God. He is the sovereign and the holy, the source of safety, the giver of peace, the guardian, the Almighty, the enforcer of His decrees, its enforcer and its fashioner. His are the excellent names, the Asma'ul Husna. Whatever is there in the heavens and the earth glorifies Him, and He is the Almighty and the All-Wise. My dear brothers and sisters, Dr. Anwar Siddiqui, the President of the University, Dr. Ansari, the Director General of the Islamic Research Institute and the Vice President of the University, Dr. Muzaffar Iqbal, the Chief Editor of the Integrated Encyclopedia of the Qur'an, who is now visiting us from Canada, and all of you. Let me welcome you once again. It's a great pleasure that you all have joined us this evening for the presentation about the Integrated Encyclopedia of the Qur'an. This evening we will have a very interesting discussion. Firstly, Dr. Zafar Ansari is going to talk a little bit about and give an introduction to the concept and what we're all doing. And on behalf of both the university as well as him being a part of this particular project, he will give us an introduction and he will also introduce Dr. Muzaffar Iqbal. Followed by Dr. Muzaffar Iqbal's presentation, and then subsequently at the end we will have Dr. Anwar Siddiqui thanking us and giving his acknowledgements on behalf of the university. I would like to thank the university for providing this particular platform for us to discuss about this very, very important project. We are indeed, I must say, very fortunate that this most important project, I look at this as probably one of the most important projects of the century, that we are the ones that are sitting in this hall to try and take it forward. Over the last year, the team that has been working on it has been working very hard, and inshallah, I hope that all of us here in this room will in some way or the other participate in this great project. The Qur'an is the essence of our life, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has promised that He is the one who protects it. We are just the tools, and He uses us to ensure that the message is taken forward and the Qur'an is protected. Without any further discussion, I would like to invite Dr. Zafar Hansani to please come forward and give his introduction to the project and to the concept.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. President of the University, Dr. Anwar Hussain Siddiqui, Brother Surqadr Siddiqui, the Chair of this institution, Society for Quranic Studies, Dr. Muzaffar Iqbal, the person who conceived the idea and is now moving forward with great devotion and enthusiasm to execute it. And ladies and gentlemen, I can hardly say more than what Brother Surqadr Siddiqui has said, that this is an exceedingly important venture, and I think that the International Islamic University is fortunate to have been the first venue for its introduction. The idea of this encyclopedia is very simple, and permit me to drive across the point by a story which I think is very apt. The story goes that in a small village, where people of different communities lived, all Muslims were overly occupied by their professional occupations. They had to earn their bread. Somebody was a tailor, somebody was a weaver, somebody was a peasant, and so on and so forth. And they became so very busy that the poor Muslim community of that village could not find anyone who would be committed to make adhan 5 times a day at its regular timing. So, how could there be a Muslim village without azan? And no Muslim is free to devote some few minutes, 5 times a day, and whose sense of responsibility can be trusted sufficiently to ensure that azan would be made. They found themselves in a difficult situation. So they came upon a very interesting solution. They hired a Jew living in the same village, paid him a fairly handsome salary, and they said, "You will give azan in this mosque." So he began giving azan very regularly, very punctually. But in 1 or 2 days' time, the Muslims of the village realized that there was a little bit missing in this azan. He would start, as all of us do, and say all those things, Allahu Akbar, and even La ilaha illallah, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, but he would never say Ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah. So Muslims went to that Jew and they said, "What's the matter? The azan is not complete." So he said, "I've said almost everything that I could say in good conscience." They said, "You don't say, oh, Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah." He said, "I'm a Jew, I can't say that." Now if you leave the field of Islamic studies and Quranic studies because we are too busy with everything else in life, then this is going to happen. Every vacuum has to be filled. And I do not blame the non-Muslims for not saying Ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah, or even not saying Ashhadu anna al-Qur'an Kitab Allah, because this is against their conscience, this is against their convictions. This feeling that the field has been left to others to present their researches even on the Quran, that was the pathetic situation which made some of us think about this, and the credit goes to our brother Dr. Muzaffar Kamal that he thought about it. And unlike most of us, he doesn't only think, but he acts, and acts with great passion and perseverance. So he came up with the idea that there should be a full-fledged encyclopedia which would not compromise the least in regard to the academic standards of scholarship and research. In fact, this encyclopedia would try to excel others, but its starting point would be an affirmation of something which is at the heart of a Muslim's faith, that this book, the Qur'an, is a revelation from God for humanity's guidance for all times to come. Let everything be looked at from this perspective. This should be the given. and everything else would emanate from it. This will provide the perspective with which everything related to the Qur'an will be seen. Now, it's sad to say that this has not been the perspective of whatever has been written. But again, it's not others who are to blame. Primarily, we have to blame ourselves. Why did we appoint a Jew to say azan in the mosque? I do not wish to add anything because I think the project is going to be explained in clear and forceful terms and in sufficient detail by the man who conceived this and who has been working extremely hard to execute this for the last 2 years or so. And I mean Dr. Muzaffar. With these words, I would like to, it is for the President to say that the university lends its support and would like to contribute whatever it can to make this a success. But I know Dr. Mar Siddiqui and I know Professor Fateh Muhammad Malik, who unfortunately could not make it to this meeting, that I can, on their behalf, on behalf of both of them, and therefore on behalf of the university, say that this is the project conceived by some people, but this is for all, to the extent that we have anything, scholars, library, or anything else that the university has, is at your disposal. So we are fully behind you, and go ahead with God's support and help, and may Allah be with all of us. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I was trying to introduce myself as a friend of Muzaffar Pal because this is how, what would be creditable for me to be known as. Dr. Muzaffar Iqbal, we have distributed a small brochure which does mention him. Let me mention some of the most important things. His own education, on the one hand, combined is in the field of natural sciences, chemistry being a field in which he got his PhD, but at the same time he also had a master's in linguistics. So it's a rather unusual combination. And first he became known to people in the field of literature as a creative literature, as a poet, and as a literary critic. But God had some, I think, something more important for him to achieve in this life, and he moved, his attention was seized by other problems, and I think with the passage of every year and even every month, Islam and the Book of God became the center of his attention. He is the president of the Center for Islam and Science in Canada. He is publishing a journal called Journal of Islam and Science. But more and more, his focus is now on the Qur'an. And I'm reminded of what Shibli said after he wrote his, or while he was writing his सीरा के अजम की दास्तान लिखी, मगर अब लिख रहा हूँ सीरत पैगम्बर ख़ातम, खुदा का शुक्र है यूं खात्मा बिल खैर होना था. Now he has taken upon himself a devoted service to the Book of God. And what could be a greater thing to do for any one of us? With these few words, I would take leave of you, and you will hear what the idea of this encyclopedia is, how it is conceived, and how we shall, inshallah, with God's help, move ahead towards its execution. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi.
Thank you, Dr. Ansari, for those introductory words and for the introduction for Dr. Muzaffar Iqbal. I'm sure all of you have probably received a copy of this little booklet on the raison d'etre and the project summary of this particular encyclopedia. If you don't have a copy, it's available outside, inshallah, and you'll be able to get it. Just so that people might be aware of what has been published by the West, as Dr. Ansari has pointed out, the Jew that called Yazan. So that is his production, which is the Encyclopedia of the Qur'an that has been published by Western Orientalist scholars. This is one of the volumes. It's published in 6 volumes, and it is available for $2,000. And that's their contribution to try and tell us what is their understanding of the Qur'an. And now I'd like to invite Dr. Muzaffar Iqbal to come and tell us a little bit about this particular book and what we are trying to do and how he has conceived the vision behind it and how we're going to take it forward, inshallah. Dr. Muzaffar.
اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Dr. Anwar Siddiqui, Dr. Zafar Ishaq Ansari, Brother Dr. Zulqadar Qadi, brothers and sisters. One of the last big public events during the life of our beloved Prophet was the gathering during the last Hajj of the Prophet ﷺ. One of the last things he did on that day of Arafah during the Hajj ceremony was to ask the gathering, which was the largest gathering of Muslims anywhere in the world until that time. He asked a question: have I conveyed the message to you? And when the gathering said, Bala, yes, he raised his finger to the sky and he said, Allah mashhad, O Allah, be my witness, be the witness. Why did he do that? He was sent to convey a message. He had the duty to convey the message, and the Qur'an tells us that on the day of Qiyamah, all the prophets are going to be asked whether or not they had discharged the duty with which they were sent. And on that day, he told the companions gathered there to relay the news of what they had heard to those who were not present there. And he said maybe some of those who are not here would act upon it and spread it further more than you do. The duty of the Risala thus passed with the demise of the Prophet ﷺ to the companions who saw him walking on this earth, talking with them, conveying the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to them. The book that makes you and me and all of us shuhada al-nas, witness upon people. The companions, may Allah bless all of them, within the first 50 years of Hijrah, they were as far as Samarkand. Qasam Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu is buried in Samarkand. I went to his grave there. Medina and Samarkand are so far away. What was in the heart of these people who had seen the noble messenger with their eyes? What were they carrying? They were carrying the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to lands where this message was not present. Why were they doing this? What was in their hearts when they took these long journeys in days when journeys were not easy? They could have stayed in Medina, lived a comfortable life. But they had a duty that none other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala imposed upon all believers to be witness to people, be shuhada al-nas. There were only two things that their Prophet told them and our Prophet told them. The book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Sunnah. They lived the Sunnah and they carried the book. And this went on for centuries. What do we have now? 1.5 billion people pronounce Ashhadu la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadar Rasulullah. Every fourth person walking on this earth today is a Muslim. But only 20% of those people can read the book of Allah. Out of that 20% who can actually pick up the book and read, a fraction does not understand what is being said. This is our state. This is the book in which we all believe, and this is the book with which we have left no rapport. We don't even have access to the book. This severance between the only thread that we have from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the thread with which we can hope to enter His paradise, has been cut off. Our education, our circumstances, I don't need to go into details of how this happened, but it has happened. It has already happened. Dr. Ansari gave this beautiful example of the appointment of the Jew, but there is a Jew in the heart that has cut that bond with the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because of X number of circumstances. We simply do not have the most basic ability, 80% of Muslims, to pick up this book every single day and read an ayah. As for the Sunnah, the second thing that the Prophet said on that day to hold fast to, you all know the situation. At the beginning of the 20th century, there was a very organized, deliberate effort to discredit the entire Hadith literature by the Orientalists. I was told today in a meeting before we came here by Brothers Qadi Zulqadar that almost every day one or the other brother comes to him and he says, we don't need to believe in hadith. We have the Quran. Quran is good. Because hadith, how do we know whether it's right or wrong? This is our state. Where does this thought comes from? Where is the origin of a believer saying these things? And these are educated people. Otherwise, this is the severance with the second source of our deen. The Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ is now not even understood in the manner it was understood by the Sahaba. People who saw him, the perfect model that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created. Without these sources, where are we? You know the situation of Muslims today? It's not the economic struggle, it's not the political problems. It's the severance from these two sources that has produced all kinds of diseases. The noble messenger told us that there is an organ in the body. If it's sick, then the whole body is sick. This is that organ. This is that organ, and the food of this organ is the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the love of His messenger. And this organ, this heart of the Muslim Ummah is starving. It has no knowledge.